Okay, I'm gonna read another article. This is a long one. Bear with me. It's kind of pathetic to me, but it's part of what happens. It's from the same newspaper, The Insight, published in Accra, Ghana. This is from Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. Headline: 67 killed in stampedes at Christmas food drives in Nigeria as IMF-induced hunger engulfed millions more in 2024. 67 people, including 35 children and 22 women, were trampled to death in three separate stampedes that ensued in Nigeria as desperate crowds struggled to get their hands on a bag or two of groceries being distributed at Christmas charity events. Never before have there been so many people in Nigeria without food, the UN World Food Program stated in November 2024, noting that 25 million people needed aid. UN agencies warn this number will increase in 2025 to 33 million, including 16 million children. Acute malnutrition, which was affecting 4.4 million children as of April 2024, haunts another million children. 5.4 million children are now at risk of facing acute malnutrition by next April, a 25% increase over a year, Save the Children said. Of these 4.5 million, about 1.8 million could be experiencing severe acute malnutrition, the deadliest form of malnutrition that compromises children's immune systems and turns otherwise treatable illnesses such as diarrhea potentially lethal. This represents an alarming 80% increase in cases. The first 5,000 children to come to the Christmas fun fair organized by a local radio station at a school in Oyo State's capital, Ibadan, on December 18th were promised food parcels and cash. Thousands, including parents, slept the previous night outside the school gate. At dawn, 7,500 people were jostling to be the first 5,000 through the gate. In the aftermath of the stampede that followed, the bodies of 35 dead children were recovered. 22 women were crushed 2 days later on December 20th in another stampede in so-and-so town and Nabra State, where frenzied crowds struggled for bags of rice that were being handed out at the charity event organized by a businessman and philanthropist. Earlier that morning, another 10 lifeless bodies, including that of 7 children, were on the ground alongside many other injured people screaming for help outside the Holy Trinity Church in a plush neighborhood of Nigeria's capital, Abuja. 3,000 residents from nearby poor settlements had crowded outside the church before dawn to receive the parcels it was handing out. We should just get on with it. Now check this out. But things are improving. It doesn't kill our happiness for the season. We should just get on with it, remarked President Bola Tinubu during his presidential media chat. Tinubu has overseen a 200% increase in food prices in less than 2 years of his rule. 200%. It's very sad that people are not well organized. We just have to be more disciplined in our society, he added, kind of blaming the victim, sounds like to me. If you know you don't have enough to give, don't attempt to even give or publicize it, he chided the organizers of the charity events, many of whom have been arrested. Stampedes at food distribution points are metaphors for the desperation that citizens have been thrown into, said the Bishop of Sokoto, blaming the failures of government to respond concretely toward ending the horrible crisis of hunger. A 50-kilogram bag of rice, Nigeria's staple, has more than doubled since Tinubu took power in May 2023, costing over 100,000 naira today, 30,000 more than the minimum wage of 70,000. The time for lamentation is over, Tinubu declared on December 19 while presenting the 2025 budget in Nigeria's parliament, barely 5 kilometers from the church outside which 10 were killed in the stampede the next morning. There's a time to act. Asked what action he would take to check the rising prices of essentials, we just continue to supply the market. We work hard to supply the market, Tinubu replied. I don't believe in price control. IMF prescribed market fundamentalism, that's the next headline. His market fundamentalism has won much praise from the IMF, white folks, which had been long calling on Africa's largest producer of crude oil to remove the petroleum subsidies for its people. who constitute the continent's largest population. The fuel subsidy is gone, he declared in an inaugural speech May 29, 2023, after winning the disputed election for which he had campaigned promising to slash petrol prices. He has presided over a nearly 500% increase in petrol prices since. The resulting increase in energy and transport costs shot up all prices, including that of food. Only days after lifting fuel subsidies, Tinubu also kneecapped Nigeria's ability to import food by ending government control over currency exchange rate and floating naira, which has since lost over 70% of its value, dropping from about 461 per dollar to 1,550. Lord have mercy. President Tinubu has moved ahead with important structural reforms, removing fuel subsidies and unifying the various official foreign exchange windows, praised the IMF. IMF liked it, poor people suffering. Noting with satisfaction that the central bank was demonstrating a resolve by dropping its previous role in development finance, its February 2024 assessment concluded that Nigeria's capacity to repay the fund is adequate. Due to its assessment, within a year of taking power, Tinubu had coughed up U.S. $1.2 billion for the IMF in service of the U.S. $3.4 billion COVID emergency loan it had provided to Nigeria in 2020. By then, the World Bank approved a U.S. $2.25 billion loan, praising his reform as the initial critical steps to restore macroeconomic stability. They call it reform when they cut services for poor people and raise taxes. With several other borrowings, the national debt under his watch rose by 24.33 trillion, over 14 billion in US, reaching 121 trillion naira, almost 79 billion US. I have no regret, he says. Borrowing is not criminal, Tinubu said at the press conference on December 23rd, arguing it was necessary to address the serious infrastructural changes. But petrol supplies amounted to spending our future, spending our generation's fortune, he insisted. I have no regret removing petrol subsidy, which according to a study published in the Central Bank of Nigeria's quarterly journal has been the main driver of food price inflation. Resulting hunger has not spared the members of his own party, one of whom was among the 7 killed in the stampede in February 2024 in Nigeria's commercial hub Lagos, where the customs service was selling rice bags confiscated from smugglers at a discounted price. But then 100 million people, 45% of the population were experiencing varying degrees of food insecurity, up from 66 million last year. The World Food Program had warned that 18.6 million of them were suffering acute hunger, while 43.7 million were coping with hunger levels at or above its benchmark for classification as crisis. In a wave of incidents over March and April, desperate residents broke into warehouses and blocked highways to hold up trucks to loot rice bags. Extrajudicial executions, mass arrests, custodial torture were all used to crack down on the hunger protests organized by civil society organizations from August 1 through 10, demanding a reinstatement of petrol subsidies and regulation of Naira's exchange rate. In face of these hunger-driven protests, looting, and stampedes, Tinubu has remained unfazed. The time for lamentation is over. This is a time to act, a time to support and promote greater investment in the private sector, he announced in his parliamentary speech, presenting an ambitious but necessary budget, a third of which will go towards servicing debt he continues to accumulate, even as millions join Nigeria's hungry population. I just wanted to read the whole thing, because it's kind of how the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank operates. These governments get in serious trouble, stealing all the money mostly, a lot of them. That's the truth. It may sound unblack and not progressive to you, but I'm telling you, it's a lot of corruption, and a lot of it goes into the leaders' pockets. Then they go to the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, they got to beg and borrow and steal. And the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank have the same prescription, austerity. Quit funding schools, hospitals, clinics, poor people, raise taxes here, raise taxes there, and the people suffer. But the elite don't suffer at all. They still live the life of luxury. And this guy, he doesn't even seem to have much compassion. That's just my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe he does, Maybe it's just his personality, his way of expressing himself. But it's unfortunate, and it doesn't sound good at all to me. And in fact, even in Ghana, I saw on the news today that women are paying taxes on sanitary napkins, and that's what drove, as part of what drove the Kenyans to the street, almost overturned the government earlier last year behind these proposed taxes on sanitary napkins and other necessities that just don't seem right, trying to pay the International Monetary Fund back on the back of the poor people. So it's just a brief news update. Probably won't do any more for a while. I don't know if anybody's interested in this stuff. I can get long-winded. Peace out, blessings, and Happy New Year.